Thank you for tuning in to the Two Bros Wrestling Show. I am Kevin. I hope your summer is going well, but it isn't summer without SummerSlam, and that is what we are here to talk about on today's episode. Hard to believe it is SummerSlam time already, but our main event topic tonight will be previewing both nights of the big show in Minneapolis. Once again, it is two nights, just as it was last year, which that could be a bit of a talking point coming out of the weekend as well, because there's been some talk about the tickets not selling very well. Obviously, if you have a giant stadium that you need to fill twice over, any lag in tickets is going to be a little more noticeable. Last time we had this kind of hubbub was going into WrestleMania, and as we all know, that turned out just fine. With a few discounts here and there, the stadium looked great for two straight nights there in Las Vegas. I imagine the same will be happening this weekend for what has become the second biggest show of the year for WWE, but we're down to $25 tickets just to get in an attempt to make sure that we have a stadium that looks very full. So let's wait and see how that turns out. But if you're in the area and have been on the fence about going, maybe now's the time to just get in the building for relatively little. Let's talk now about the matches that are happening and my predictions for who is going to win. We are going to go break this down night by night. So we will start with night one, and we'll start with the bloodline, that being Jacob Fatu, Jey Uso, and Jimmy Uso, taking on the unlikely trio of LA Knight, Royce Keys, and Solo Sikoa. A couple things to note about this particular match. The Strange Bedfellows tag team there is, on the face side, is 101 wrestling booking, in that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So how can these three trust each other? Will they be able to make it through the match together? The wild card there, of course, being Solo Sikoa. The other thing I wanted to point out about this strangeness of the face side. Solo is full into his face era now. And for the most part, the fans have been reacting very positively to the new Solo Sikoa, showing a side of his personality that he has not yet done so in the WWE. I feel like it's working out pretty well. I don't know that Royce Keys is taking off yet the way that WWE thought he would. I wish nothing but the best of luck to the former powerhouse Hobbs, but I just don't feel like he's connecting quite yet on the WWE main roster. All that said, though, I do believe he's going to be part of the winning team this weekend. I think that there will be some dissension on the bloodline side, and that LA Knight, Royce Keys, and the newly faced Solo Sikoa will win. I think this will spin off into something more significant for Solo and a different path, and I think that this will probably plant some seeds of tension between Jacob Fatu and the Usos on the other side. The reason why I'm thinking the booking is going to go the way of the faces in this match. Next match is another six-man tag that I think will be early in the card. It came together very quickly, and that is the Bellas and Paige taking on Fatal Influence, which, of course, is JC Jane, Fallon Henley, and Lainey Reed. Fatal Influence has been one of the best things on the WWE main roster since they debuted many months back now, but the momentum that they have has continued to build. However, this match, as I mentioned, came together quickly because Nikki Bella, who was hurt prior to Mania season and wasn't able to go and perform at WrestleMania, thus being replaced by a returning Paige. Well, Nikki herself has now returned, and that is the reason why I think that you're going to go with the goodwill here of people being happy to see Nikki back and the Bellas reunited. So I do believe that despite Fatal Influence's march up to this point of stacking wins, I do think that the Bellas and Paige are going to go over in this particular contest. The next match I'd like to preview is the ring general, Gunther, taking on Nick Aldis. Now, if you are strictly a WWE person and do not watch the greater world of professional wrestling, you may think that this is a mismatch and wonder what Nick Aldis, a general manager, could possibly bring to the ring. Those of you watching this are more likely to be diehard wrestling fans that have watched a lot of different promotions through the years and know that Nick Aldis, aka Magnus, in TNA, has had a run in TNA, had a run in the National Wrestling Alliance, has had a run across different independent promotions and regional promotions and global promotions for years, is a multi-time world champion, obviously still in shape. Don't know if there'll be any ring rust, but you do not need to worry at all about what Nick Aldis might be able to bring to the ring. Obviously, we know that his opponent, Gunther, is going to be able to work a good match with just about anyone. So even if there is some ring rust there, I imagine that Gunther will be able to guide Nick to a very entertaining match and contest. I actually have liked this one. And then when I say you use the words actually, I'm normally not big on non-in-ring performers getting involved in a match. But in this case, with Nick Aldis's history, the way that they build the tension between the two based on Nick Aldis's decisions and management, and Gunther taking advantage of Nick by the attacks that he has levied on him, and Nick finally having enough and throwing it all in his career to get back into the ring. I have just liked the way that they have built this. However, I can't see a world where it makes sense that Nick Aldis, who in the eyes of most WWE viewers is not a professional wrestler, but rather a retired professional wrestler at best, or just a management figure for most who are watching. I don't know how you let him win over the ring general unless it is through some trickery. I want to say that it's going to be Gunther. I know that typically you wouldn't have evil prevail in this manner and that Gunther is due his comeuppance, but I just don't see it making sense from a storyline standpoint that one of your top heels loses on the SummerSlam card straight up anyway to a mostly non-performer. So I'm going to go with Gunther in this one, though it wouldn't surprise me if we find a creative way of having Nick win without Gunther losing anything because of some sort of trickery. The thing about it is I don't know where Nick Aldis goes after this. Is he going to be a in-ring performer from now on, or what? Because technically speaking, he is giving up his rights to be the general manager in order to participate in this contest. So the follow-up to this one will be very interesting. Now we're getting to the top of the card at night one. We have Liv Morgan defending her Women's World Championship against Io Sky. These two are very, very familiar with each other. Obviously, they have met previously, most recently in the finals to the Queen of the Ring tournament. They have a long history before that. I guess the thing here would be, do we feel like Liv's reign, which started at WrestleMania, is it time for it to be up? Io Sky is inarguably one of the best in-ring performers in the world. I have predicted up to this point a decent number of heels winning, so it wouldn't surprise me to have the feel-good finish here where Io Sky takes the title from Liv Morgan. Now we're going to pivot to one of the biggest selling points of this entire card, one of the biggest matches of the entire weekend. I don't know that this will be not saved until the very last match. I know we have a world title match that we're going to talk about here in a moment. I'm sure that'll be the one that they end on, but there is a chance with a Hell in a Cell structure that you save the visual of Hell in a Cell as the last thing. we'll see what route they decide to go with it. Either way, however this is placed on the card, it is certainly going to be one of the most anticipated matches of the weekend, not just because it's Hell in a Cell, but because it is Obafemi and Brock Lesnar meeting for the third and presumably last time in a Hell in a Cell. I don't First, we'll say Hell in a Cell matches are incredibly compelling and entertaining, and there was much talk prior to WrestleMania that stipulation could possibly be at WrestleMania for these two. That didn't happen. But what we have seen in their two very intense matchups is that the fans have been heavily invested. They have been very hard hitting brawls, and both matches have been relatively short. We're tied 1-1. So I don't know how much we can get out of the Hell in a Cell structure without a bit of stalling or gamesmanship or dramatic pauses, because you're going to go have this big build-up, put down the big cage, and maybe they'll wrestle for 8 minutes, 9 minutes. 12 to 15 minutes would be a long match for these two. But you can get a lot of bang for your buck in those 12 minutes if you use the cage effectively. The first two matches have overperformed as far as what folks can expect. I have no doubt when you add the Hell in a Cell element to this one, the same will be the case for the rubber match. This is in Brock's home area of Minnesota. There has been much talk over the last year of Brock Lesnar retiring. Obviously, he faked this all out at WrestleMania with the fake retirement, but it is very possible that the real retirement is upon us and that this could be his last match. Whether it is or whether it isn't, it is likely the last match with Obafemi. At this point in time, they have divided the wins. When Obafemi won at WrestleMania and everyone thought that was it for Brock Lesnar, there was a lot of kudos to Lesnar for doing the job here and putting over Oba, the next generation star, on his way out. Brock being either on his way out with this match or on his way out shortly is likely to do that very same thing here. There is no way that, knowing that this is it, that you should have the star who is going to be leaving at some point relatively soon go over the person that you're hoping to be a bankable asset for you for the next decade. So Obafemi gets to be the made man we thought he was at WrestleMania by finally putting the beast in his rear view and winning in Hell in a Cell. Which leads us to likely the final match on the card. I'll leave it up to you as to whether or not this is the true main event. It's still a very compelling story for the undisputed WWE Heavyweight Championship. You have CM Punk, the champion, taking on Cody Rhodes, the challenger. Two faces going off against each other here, or you could say maybe two tweeners that lean face, because there's certainly a fair amount of boos for each of these gentlemen when they perform. Now they're performing against each other in a match that was teased all the way back on Monday Night Raw, the night after WrestleMania. The situation at that point in time was a bit different, though, because it was Cody who was the champion and CM Punk, who did not have a title on him at the time. We have gone through the summer and the roles have reversed. Cody has lost his title. CM Punk, in his return from the WrestleMania season, we hadn't seen him since that time, returned and beat Sami Zayn for the championship. Poor Sami, the interim champion there. Now we have a situation where these two former friends, these longtime mentor, mentee, however you want to look at the relationship, they framed it very nicely in this build. The two are taking one another on for the Undisputed World Championship on the second biggest stage that WWE has every year. I think it'll be interesting to see who the fans get behind on this one. I was lucky enough to be at WrestleMania in person and can tell you that in their respective world title matches on that card, at the time, both were champions, and only Rhodes came out with his title. But Rhodes was probably booed more than he was cheered against Randy Orton. And I would say the same for CM Punk. That was a bit more of an even split, but I would say that Roman Reigns definitely had the 60-40 for most of the night over CM Punk. Who will the fans rally behind in this one? My guess is going to be it's going to be a 50-50 split. with a fair amount of boos. Could make for a very interesting atmosphere. But who's going to win? Who do you got on this one? For me, I think that the fact that Cody didn't get his legitimate rematch that he should have had after losing to Sammy, this makes the booking very simple for why he should have this match. But CM Punk hasn't been champion but for a minute. Sammy was a transitional champion who had it for all of 9 days before that. I don't know that WWE wants to play this kind of hot potato with the title by having another switch. So I'm going to go that CM Punk retains, and then that's going to lead to some sort of arc for Cody Rhodes as to what does he do from here, because he will not be the number one contender after this match. Even if he loses, he might still be in the mix, but there will be another number one contender, which is a segue that'll take us to night 2, where we have that number one contender match. So let's just go on to night 2. I won't start with that match, though. I want to start with the United States Championship match. We have Trick Williams, who himself has been champion since WrestleMania, taking on the returning Baron Corbin. And for those who read the dirt sheets or watch a lot of online wrestling personalities and podcasts like the Two Bros Wrestling Show, you knew that Baron was on his way back. It had been rumored for a while that he was coming back to WWE. He had been in MLW, performing under a different name. But Baron is now back. Does that mean that Baron is coming back and taking a title? I don't know. I wouldn't myself book it that way. I was never a huge Baron Corbin fan. I don't have anything against the man personally. I want him to earn a living, and I'm happy that he's back on the main roster. I don't necessarily want him as my United States champion, especially when Trick Williams is still so very over and entertaining. I think that because you have invested in Baron Corbin, you have to make him look good in this, and not just have him come back and get squashed in his first big high-profile match since returning. So I think he'll do a good showing for himself, but I would not take the title off Trick at this time, especially for Baron. So I'm going with Trick Williams as my prediction on this one. Next up, we have a Human Money's on a Pole match between Danhausen and Dominic Mysterio. This one's a bit of a parody of the old WCW, where there was an everything on a pole match there in the Vince Russo ending days of WCW. And I'm fine for this one just because the Danhausen character is meant to be a comedy character, and the Human Money's on a Pole is a very fun thing to throw on an otherwise stacked weekend of SummerSlam. So Danhausen versus Dominic, how does it play out? The storyline here being that the Judgment Day gave $100,000 in Human Monies, mind you, to Danhausen to curse Obafemi during the King of the Ring tournament, and then he took their money and cursed the Judgment Day instead, and thus has been months of storyline funniness. Danhausen, since WrestleMania season, or going into WrestleMania season, has been one of the biggest merchandise sellers, one of the largest personalities and characters that WWE has invested in, still gaining a lot from that investment. So Danhausen is over, but Danhausen doesn't wrestle all that much. And I think that that's an important thing to note, that Danhausen is over as a character without necessarily having to be a main event caliber professional wrestler. He does well in the ring, don't get me wrong. He can do what is needed of him when it is asked of him, and I'm sure this will be an entertaining match. I don't think Danhausen or his popularity will lose anything by losing this match. If it was a straight up match, maybe you could argue that that would be different, but where it is just who acquires the money off the pole, Dominic Mysterio is the AAA Mega Champion. He's got a big main event coming up at Triple Mania here in September. We want him to stay strong. I know WWE does. I also know that you need to move beyond the storyline, and if Judgment Day do not get their money back, I don't know how this storyline ends. So I think there's less of a risk in WWE having Danhausen lose here by having the money taken back to Judgment Day. So I do think that with Judgment Day's help, that might be the way this one goes, that Dominic comes out on top and Danhausen goes on to do something else and loses nothing in the process of losing his $100,000. I guess you could say he's not losing nothing. He's losing that human monies, but that is the way I'm going to predict it, especially since there's so many other faces I think are winning on this night. I think Danhausen takes the L here. Intercontinental Championship match is what we are going to preview next. That is Penta, who has been champ since the very well-received ladder match victory he had for the title at WrestleMania, taking on Chad Gable, whose stock has really risen since his return and the entire program that he had in Mexico and AAA as El Grande Americano. Very, very well received. Some of the best matches in WWE this year took place in AAA between the two El Grande Americanos. That was a great storyline. It has really elevated Chad Gable as a face. I think Penta is still over. I think that there's still plenty for Penta to do, but I also think that this is the hottest Chad Gable has ever been, and thus at this time on this stage, it is the right moment to crown Chad Gable your new Intercontinental Champion, and that's what I think will occur here. This next match is one I'm honestly not happy about, even though I'm sure it'll be a great match that I'm looking forward to, and that is Jade Cargill versus Tiffany Stratton versus Chelsea Green versus Charlotte Flair versus, at the point in time of this taping, a TBA in a ladder match to determine the interim WWE Women's Champion. And that's what I don't like about this match, is that we're crowning an interim champion. This is a very AEW move. This is not a WWE move. In fact, this is the first time the WWE has ever booked an interim main roster title match. The story here is, and it's not a story, it's the truth, is that the current champion, Rhea Ripley, is injured and unable to compete at SummerSlam. They don't believe, WWE doesn't, that she will be out much longer, but she is out. And therefore, they have decided to book an interim champion, which I just hate the idea of interim champions. You either forfeit the title and give it up, or you find some other way to keep the belt on the person. If Rhea really is that close to returning, then why not make this a number one contenders match? Say Rhea is unable to compete at SummerSlam, but we're going to crown her next opponent by having this ladder match for a number one contender. The idea that we have an interim champion and then Rhea will come back, I suppose, in AEW style and take on the interim champion, and then that becomes whoever wins that one becomes the actual champion. Just don't like the interim championship concept at all. But here we are. Have to predict a winner in this one, and we don't know one of the participants, but because I think that any of these women are truly worthy of their own world title reign at some point in the future, many of whom have been champion before. I will say that if you're going to have a one-on-one, it seems like a Charlotte Flair is probably someone whose time for a one-on-one with Rhea is here. It's been a while since they've gone down that road. Jade was a recent opponent. Tiffany has been a more recent champion. I think Charlotte will have a good shot at winning this. I think if my heart was making this decision, I would love to see Chelsea Green finally get her due by becoming a world champion. I just don't know that if I want that heartwarming moment to finally happen for her, that it is with an interim title that she is likely to lose as soon as Rhea Ripley comes back. So I'm going with Charlotte Flair, though I would be very happy to be wrong if Chelsea Green wins this title and then goes on to be a permanent champion in the next iteration of this title. Which leads us to a match that I referenced earlier when talking about night one, and that is who is going to be the number one contender for either CM Punk or Cody Rhodes, and whoever wins on night one. You have Finn Balor, who has reestablished himself after leaving Judgment Day as a serious threat to the main event singles title scene. And then you have the former champion, Sami Zayn, who you just got to feel for Sami after nearly 30 years of work. Finally reached the top of the industry for it to last all of 9 days. So even though he's the heel, I can't imagine that in a big pro wrestling crowd where you have an international audience, bigger tentpole event like SummerSlam, where you have so many folks come in that are diehard fans that they very well may buck the on-screen storyline of we're supposed to boo Sami and just cheer Sami for the fact that they have been on this journey with him these many decades and feel that he has legitimately been wronged by not being the champion for more than the 9 days that they gave him that title. So I think the stronger storyline here is Sami Zayn getting some amount of revenge by becoming the number one contender and moving into a program with either Punk or Rhodes after this. Another reason why that works a little better for me is that whether it's Punk or whether it's Rhodes, both are ostensibly faces, and so is Finn Balor. So I think that Sami Zayn, especially an aggrieved Sami Zayn, and he plays that role very well, I think is a stronger storyline going out of summer into fall. So I'm going to go with Sami Zayn as your number one contender and getting the win here over Finn Balor. Which leads us to the last match of the weekend, the final match for night 2, and that is the World Heavyweight Championship. We have your champion Roman Reigns taking on Seth Rollins. Roman won that title in an epic match at WrestleMania, the best match I had ever seen in person myself, and arguably one of the better matches in the history of WrestleMania. That was an amazing main event. To cap an amazing weekend. Can Roman pull off another one with Seth Rollins? Well, if you're going to, Seth Rollins is definitely a guy that can get that level of contest out of someone. I think that the history between these two obviously dates all the way back to the Shield, definitely is something that plays in their favor. Is this the last time these two meet, especially for a while? I know that Seth has hinted at such, that this could be their final time together in the ring. That is hard to say. What is not hard to say is that this contest is going to be tightly fought. It's going to be a good back and forth. I think this one, like the main event of night 1, will be interesting to see who the fans rally behind the most. Unlike night 1, where I think it might be 50-50, I am fairly certain here that Roman Reigns is going to have the majority of the audience in his pocket. But will he have the title at the end of this one? I don't think so. Even though I have very much enjoyed the Tribal Chief being back, there has been a lot of indication in his comments that he was here for the summer. Things that he said after WrestleMania, you'll be seeing me all summer, like just gave me anyway the impression that his return to the main roster in full time instead of part time was only going to be temporary. I know he has a lot of Hollywood projects and other things that wouldn't surprise me that he is going to maybe go back to through the fall and the winter. So I think that Seth Rollins will be the man standing tall at the end of night 2 of SummerSlam. What do you think? We would be interested in hearing your take. Put in the comments what you think of these predictions and where you think I got it wrong, or if you agree that I got it right. I will say that we do miss Doug, and we're still on hiatus from our normal format here on the Two Bros Wrestling Show. So if this is the first time you have watched us, we typically do these slightly differently when the two of us are here, but keep tuned to our channels, and we will let you know when we get back to regular weekly broadcast. If you haven't yet, please give us a like or a subscribe. And with that, I'm going to actually do a big finish. And typically for our big finish, when we have our normal format, we do match of the week, we do botch of the week, we do performance of the week. I'm not going to do all three, but I wanted to add a big finish on this just to do a call out to what my performance of the week in professional wrestling was this week, and that is Grayson Waller. I know that Grayson has not been high on the radar of WWE brass for a while. He put himself in that position this week. There's this fallacy sometimes that is spoken of in wrestling that management likes for you to believe, and that is that, you know, it is up to the performer to take advantage of the opportunities they are given. And while that is true, sometimes you just can't overcome bad booking. That lets the writing team, the producers, the bookers off way too easy to say that you should be able to make any lemonade out of whatever lemons you're handed. Not always possible. Steve Austin did great with King of the Ring and Austin 316. There wasn't a whole lot he can do with the Ringmaster. So all that is to say that Grayson Waller has been poorly booked for the last couple of years, but they did give him a sliver of opportunity by letting him return to NXT and just giving him a microphone where he gave one of the best promos you will hear this year by far, by anybody. It was real, it was passionate, it was memorable, it was funny, it was accurate in many regards, but he basically broke down where his career has been the last 2 years, and he did so in incredibly charismatic fashion. He's always had it in the ring, he's always had it on the mic. He hasn't always had the most opportunity over the last couple of years, even after it looked for a while like he was going to be something special. Hopefully this reignites things. Hopefully this wasn't a one-off. Hopefully the brass saw what he did, realized what they could possibly have in him, and give Grayson Waller more opportunity moving forward. So my performer of the week, Grayson Waller, kudos to you, sir, on a very memorable promo. If you haven't seen it out there, go watch it. And with that, go watch SummerSlam. Enjoy it. Thank you for tuning in to the Two Bros Wrestling Show. Until I see you again, this has been Kevin. Go watch some wrestling, everybody.